Hey, I'm Hops Roberts, and today we're unlocking the principles of crafting killer beats. From drum racks and MIDI programming to customizing drum sounds, we'll also explore grids and techniques for humanizing your rhythms. So let's amplify your beats and dive into the art of programming. So I can go through the previews and listen on their own, but in the context of this track, you can see that I already have some stuff loaded up. I've got some piano, I've got some other keys here. So I'm going to play those. And I've got some hi-hats in there as well, which is just a sample that I loaded in there. And what I can now do is I can click once again, preview these drum kits, but hear them in context. So I can hear what cuts through nicely, what just fits well sonically with what I already have here. Sounds quite nice, it's not cutting through so much. Yeah, that seems nice. I'll get this one. So I'm just going to drag and drop that onto the MIDI channel. And so now we can see the title's changed. It's gone from just being called MIDI, and now it's called 808 Aristocrat Kit. So that's ready to roll. And over here, I can see by clicking here that it's record enabled. So it's ready for me to actually start triggering it. Once the instrument's loaded up, there's different ways of programming beats in according to how you find it most comfortable. The first thing I'm going to do here, just so we get used to clips, is I'm going to load up a blank MIDI clip. So I'm going to select the area I want to create it in, and I'm going to right click, and down here I can insert an empty MIDI clip or use the shortcut here, which is really helpful. So we can do Shift, Command and M, and it will do that for me. So now I have this nice clip here, and it's the same color as the master channel, so it's really nicely color coded. And at the bottom here, now you can see it has loaded up the MIDI clip itself. So let's take a little look at how this is laid out. On the left-hand side of the MIDI clip, we can see that there's a vertical, like a piano roll, looks like a piano that's on its side. This is no coincidence that if you're using a melodic or a harmonic instrument, that will behave exactly the same as a piano. So C will be C, C sharp, etc. when you click on them. And that's how you can program in chords and information that way, which we'll look at shortly. But because this is a drum rack, instead of tethering it to being piano sounds or behaving like a classic piano, each of these keys corresponds to the name next to it. So here we can see that there's different hits. So we can see there's a kick, there's a rim shot, there's snares, claps, everything. And because I've got this cute little headphone jobby clicked on here, so this button here, it means that when I click on these, it's previewing each sound. So that's really, really helpful to be able to work out what things are. Obviously, it can get annoying over time, so you might want to turn that off if you know the drum rack really well. But while you're getting to terms with it and getting your head around it, it's really helpful. In the MIDI clip mode, we have a grid here. And the way that I think of MIDI clips themselves is that they're effectively sheet music for the computer. So you're programming in the same as a musician, let's say in an orchestra is reading left to right, and they're reading through sheet music. This is the way that the computer does that and how we show it, when to play a note, how long to play it for, and we have all these different options of how to make it trigger this sheet music for itself. So we've given it a virtual instrument here, and now we're giving it a virtual piece of sheet music. To program in, I can simply double click in certain areas. So what I'm doing here, and this is a pretty classic way, is you can see that there's a slight gradient difference. So we have a darker gray here, a lighter gray here, darker gray here, lighter gray. This is corresponding to the different beats. So it's a much easier way of being able to tell where we are. I can see the beats along the top. We've got the grid up here. So it's 1, 1.2, 1.2, and before 2. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. But then we have all the smaller denominations in between. I can change this and make it more or less intricate or more refined. So I can right click here, and on the fixed grid down here, we can see that 1/16 is clicked. If you look at the bottom right, we're in 1/16 mode. So it gives us an indication of what kind of timeline we're using or what kind of grid we're using. 1/16 simply means that for every beat, there's 16 segments that I can actually use. If I go to 1/32, you can see now, look how intricate it is. There's loads more segments, so we can make things much more rapid because that's now 32 segments to a beat. That's a bit too much for me at this point, and I don't need it to be that wide. So I'm just going to put it down to an 8 so I can have a bit more, I can see what I'm doing, but at the same time I can program in. I'm just double clicking in each of these at the beginning of each of these columns, and you'll see why now when I solo this and just put a click up here, the metronome up here, Nice. So that's on every beat. But we can make it even more rapid, so I can actually double that time up. So I could, well, if I'm double timing it, I'll put 1 between each. So now we've got, or again, we can just go even faster. Now, double clicking in each of these is all very well and good, but there's a quicker way of doing this, and it's something that I refer to as the pencil, because it reminds me that the shortcut for it on the keyboard is B. Now watch what happens to my cursor when I press B. Pencil. It turns into a pencil. And the difference between that and double clicking, because double clicking can be quite tiring, especially if you're using a trackpad, I just click once. I can click once on or off on anything. Or I can even drag it, so you can actually draw beats, which is going to sound pretty wild. But not bad, obviously, because it's tethered to a grid, so it's always in time. I'm just going to undo that. This is really good for also if you're doing like rapid hi-hats. So I've just chosen this hi-hat section here, and I'm just clicking and dragging across rather than double clicking all the way along, which would be exhausting. So yeah, the pencil's a really great tool for this. It's not always necessary, but when you're having to do rapid things, or if you're just not wanting to get exhausted, it's a really good thing to use. If you want to become a Saffron member and have access to more, then tap the link below and get some deeper insights into your music production.